This is the one with kilts, cross-dressing, some royal bling, and the introduction of a brand new companion. It's called the Highlanders. Here we go. We're embarking on a voyage all through time and all through space,
countering Daleks, Thal and Ood, and the Cybertronic race.
Sontarans look like taters, and Silurians all have wonky scales.
And the Doctor has a TARDIS, we're reviewing all his tales. Who back when? Reviewing all of who there is. Who back when?
Subscribe and rate on iTunes, please.
Episode by episode, we're trudging down this temporal road. Come join us on this odyssey. What other choice could there be than who back when?
Who back when? Hello, ladies and gentlemen of podcast land, and welcome to episode C031. Holy smokes. Of Who Back When? A Doctor Who doc post? Yeah. I am Ponken. Yes, I am. And with me tonight as you probably guessed, is no one. I am recording another solo mission because this is a review of yet another lost episode, or a lost serial rather. So I have not been able to / been inclined to rope anyone in to do the dirty work with me. But don't you worry, we are steadily getting through all of these lost episodes, and very, very soon, all of the classic Who that we will be reviewing is going to be completely goddamn intact, so that you, ladies and gentlemen of podcast land, I sincerely mean this. This was done solely for you guys. All of that is watchable, so that you guys, that's right, I'm talking about you, that you can watch and follow along with us. Anyway, I will add as a little disclaimer, as I tend to do on these solo episodes, if rather than listen to a soliloquy performed by yours truly, that's me, you would prefer to listen to a dialogue twixt myself and one or more of my fabulous co-hosts, then, you know what, just listen to pretty much any other episode of Who Back When. Anyway, oh god, this is going to be a long one. I'm going to speed through this as best as I can. We'll see how long it goes. Okay, before I jump into the B-Scow, there is some serious trivia associated with this serial. So, if you are still sticking around, then I am very, very pleased to hear that, obviously. Thanks, you're in my good books. And I should say, if you do want to ingest the Who that I absorbed myself before, as a foundation for this review, then check out the Loose Cannon Productions reconstruction of this serial. They did a fantastic job, and it seems to me like they had even less than normal to work with in this case. But seriously, it's watchable, ish. It's definitely worth it. It's a great story, by the way. And also you can supplement that, as I did, with the BBC audiobook version of this, which is narrated by, you know what? I'm struggling to remember who narrates this. Is it Fraser Hines? Might be Fraser Hines. I don't think it's Fraser Hines. Doesn't matter. It's good. So check that out. Also, associated with this serial is some fantastic goddamn primo A-grade trivia. Numero uno, this is all bullet pointed, so numero uno, this is the last of the so-called pure historical genre. It's not a pseudo-historical, it's not a sci-fi one, it is a historical. And apparently, actually, as I recall, I think JD pointed this out in some prior review that we did, I can't remember which one, that this is the last historical until the serial Black Orchid, which doesn't air until 1982. So, I mean, that's insane, right? That's ages from now. That's like 15 years from now or something. That's numero uno. Numero dos. This marks the introduction of the next companion, Jamie McCrimmon, played by Fraser Hines. Fraser Hines, by the way, if you guys haven't listened to our 50th anniversary convention bonus episode, which was co-hosted by JD, pre-Who Back When co-host JD, and the ever so lovely Gina Guerrero at Gina Guerrero1 on Twitter. In that bonus episode, we talked about having seen the very same Fraser Hines on stage. He stopped by the 50th anniversary convention to talk about his adventures on set and his time as, in fact, the longest running male companion of Doctor Who to date. As in, holy crap, someone called Guinness got a record on our hands. So that's pretty cool. Numero tres, apologies everyone in Spanish-speaking parts of the world. This story was originally titled Culloden, or Culloden? Culloden? Apologies for my mispronunciation there. Either way, that's not very interesting trivia. I will move on. Here's something pretty juicy though. If you see the Loose Cannon Productions reconstruction of this serial, you get two names associated with the writing credits. They are Elwyn Jones and Jerry Davis. Now here's the thing. Elwyn Jones, He was meant to do the actual writing of this story, but for some reason, he ended up just just dropping a massive steamer on it. He did no work whatsoever, and instead, the guy who was employed to do the editing of Elwyn Jones's writing, namely one Jerry Davis, he ended up writing the whole thing, and he did a fantastic job. And weirdly, I don't know if there's weird contractual obligations involved. Regardless, both of them were co-credited. They were jointly credited on this. That's according to TARDIS Wiki, by the way. Next up, holy crap, this is the second to last. This is the penultimate bullet points in this trivia intro. The dude who directed this serial, one Hugh David. It was so weird when people have given names, both as a given name as a surname, by the way. Hugh David, well done, guy. Anyway, he directed this, but back in the 60s, he was also an actor, and check this out, ladies and gentlemen of podcast land, holy crap, check this out, Hugh David was actually in the runnings to be the very first Doctor. He was meant to be the Doctor in place of William Hartnell, but turns out he was really young at the time. He was, I'm going to check this out, he was 38 years old. It's not actually that young, considering what New Who Doctors are. I mean, Matt Smith, he was like, 17? Anyway, doesn't matter. So, yeah, pretty cool. An almost former Doctor is directing the second Doctor in this serial. And last but not least, there was a plan to have another serial, a season 6 serial, in fact, called The Laird of McCrimmon. And that would have basically been written as an impetus for Jamie, the said longest-running male companion ever, to leave Doctor Who, to leave the show, but for some reason it was never produced. It was never, written, produced, aired, whatever. So, who knows how Jamie leaves the show? I don't know. I haven't seen anything of his yet, well, aside from this one. Anyway, so there we go. That's all the trivia you get for now. Let's jump into a bite-sized chunk of Who. Bite-sized chunk. Doc and Co. arrive in Scotland in 1746 during the final throes of the Battle of Culloden. Culloden? Cannot remember how to pronounce that. Anyway, there they are, and obviously they get pulled into the action pronto. They team up with a group of Jacobites to help their wounded laird, one Laird McLaren, of the Clan McLaren, and we get the let's split up and meet back here in 10 minutes trope as Polly heads in one direction with McLaren's daughter, while the rest are arrested by the English. Hilarity ensues as the Doc impersonates the German Dr. von Wehr, disguises himself in drag, and becomes an accomplice to fraud, wrongful incarceration, and murder. Awesome. End of B-Scout. Let's jump into this bad boy. It's a 4-episode arc. All 4 episodes are missing. This is going to be fun. Episode 1. The intrepid TARDIS crew arrives near... I'm just going to go with Culloden. Culloden Moor in the middle of a battle. In the periphery of a battle anyway. Scotsmen are fighting and dying for Bonnie Prince Charlie, while English redcoats fight in the name of King George II. It's a pretty violent intro, by the way, with, dudes being run through by swords, other homies dodging bullets left and right, and some pretty badass honchos on either side emitting guttural roars of aggression. It's very, very child-unfriendly. Doesn't matter. In the middle of all of this, in fact, this is what we open on. The Scottish laird, that's Lord to you and me, Colin McLaren, there can be only one, has been wounded in battle and is being carried to safety by his kids, Alexander and Kirsty. Or Christy? Oh, god damn it, I've already forgotten. And some other dude whom we'll be seeing a record amount of in the serials to come, namely soon-to-be longest-running male companion ever, Jamie McCrimmon. Yada yada yada, let's get back to the TARDIS, where Benny mistakes the ruckus in the background for a football match, dodges an honest-to-God straight-up 10-pound cannonball, and still wants to check out what's going on. Pretty interesting to note here is that the Doc does exactly what Nicolele, the Druid, and I discussed in our review of... I want to say the Impossible Planets, i.e. he wants to get the S out of D. He basically, for once, reasons that there are way too many dangers around. The stakes are way too high. Cannonballs are flying. Someone's clearly pretty angry. Ipso facto, there is no point in sticking around. Which, let's face it, would be the rational course of action in nearly every episode, which in turn would result in there being no show anymore, right? Or at the very least in the duration of serials being cut down to about 2 minutes, unless they happen to materialize on a planet made entirely out of candy floss and blowjobs, which in turn is probably why Doc and Co. make the irrational choice of sticking around regardless of how loudly, however big a monster screams about however hard it's going to fist and or eat them in however scary and hostile an environment they have materialized in. I'm sure that made grammatical sense. Whatever. So now they're exploring and Doc once again picks up a funky hat. I think we have another trope on our hands here, ladies and gentlemen. This time, it's a Highland bonnet, according to TARDIS Wiki anyway. And just at that time, a bunch of Scots arrive and take them for the enemy, because, even the alien sounds English. So, boom, Doc and co. are taken to a hut where the laird and co. are hiding. And I think we revisited another trope that we've encountered before in Classic Who as well. We certainly encountered a new Who all the time nowadays. Can't remember exactly, but if this has happened in Classic before, then someone please pop a comment in this Ep's post on whobackwhen.com. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that sgamer82, that's 82, the number, will provide an answer to this conundrum. Come on, Steve Meister, do not fail me now. So the trope that I'm thinking of is that Doc is referred to as Doctor, and thus mistaken for a medical doctor, and subsequently the troop is allowed to live. Now, I feel like this happens a lot. That is exactly what happens next. Doc tends to the lad, then, I'll bullet point for a bit to save time, Benny grabs a gun, then they all become friends again, then Duchess and... I'm going to say Christy, not Kirsty. Christy pop off to fetch some water, then Benny accidentally fires the gun, thus alerting nearby redcoats to their presence, and then we exit out of bullet point land. Cut to a bunch of redcoats, led by a chap called Algernon Finch, or Finch, according to Duchess later on. It's spelled with 2 F's.
Algernon Thomas Alfred Finch. 2 F's. I bet the Colonel would be highly interested to hear how his Lieutenant Finch was captured by 2 girls.
Storming the joint, and Alexander pulling a hunk number 3, that's hunk number 3 of C002 the Daleks fame, and sacrificing himself for the rest. So, yeah, he's dead now. But also, in brackets, check out our review of the Daleks. It was our second ever Who Back When review, still one of my faves. Whatever, blah 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 blah. This bit's pretty crucial and, mega entertaining. A. Benny is taken to be an English deserter, and B. The Doc now affects a faux German accent and claims to be Dr. von Wer, i.e. Doctor of Who, a doctor from Hanover, where King George II's dad, King George, in brackets, the first, was from, and that he's simply there waiting for an armed English escort to take him back to England, and his accent work is hilarious.
Dr. von Wer, at your service. Doctor who? That's what I said. One of those confounded froggies that came over with the Pretender. We ain't French, are we? German, from Hanover.
And I think, well, at least in my opinion, is possibly the first we see of Troughton separating himself from Hartnell, in terms of his temperament and his cojones, because this is playful and daring on a slightly different level, and I guess it is perhaps less connected with Troughton as a performer, although he is younger than Hartnell, obviously, and more to do with the writers and the show itself. At this point, perhaps the show was simply so established that bending the rules and having the Doc pull a LOLO is something they knew they could get away with. Maybe that's it. Regardless, it is hilarious, so do have a listen to that. On a scale from Emilio Estevez to David Hasselhoff, it rates about a Liz Hurley. Whatever that means. Probably cut that, probably not. Editing's not going to be... Editing is going to be minimal on this one. Yeah, that's right. Okay, moving on. Let's wrap up that scene before we cut away. Yada yada yada, Dr. von Wer and Bennington are going to be hanged as traitors. Cut to 2 pretty gnarly dudes, Solicitor Grey and his adjutant, Perkins. So, 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey is the Royal Commissioner of prisons or prisoners or something. He's in charge of prisons, is what I'm saying. And he has a nefarious plan to line his pockets at the Crown's expense. What it boils down to is slavery. Spoiler alert. He is generously offering inmates an opportunity for freedom by selling them off as slaves. And as far as the paperwork goes, it is actually above board. And let's put a pin in that for the very end of this serial, because he has them sign a contract. Whatever. They exit stage left to go get themselves some fresh slaves, then plop into frame just as Doc, Benny, what's-his-face, the future companion, Jamie, and the lad are about to be hanged. Doc, however, NLPs 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey and makes sure they're all spared the noose, but so now they're heading to jail/slavery instead. Almost done with this app now. Meanwhile, I'm going to look this up. Hang on. Bing bong, I'm back. I just looked it up. Her name was Kirsty, not Christy. Whatever, apologies, we all make mistakes. I'm only human, so they say. So, Kirsty and Polly are hiding somewhere. I want to say in a hollow or in a cave or something, and Polly figures they need to sell something in order to make money, in order to bribe the gods, in order to free their friends and family. Oh, by the way, so just to clarify this, Alex was Kirsty's bro. If I'm not mistaken anyway. And she has yet to shed a tear at his death. So, whatever. I suppose she has her dad, the laird, to worry about in the meantime, so maybe that's it. What could they sell, though? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the massive, ginormous piece of gold bling on Kirsty's finger. But, turns out it's her dad's ring, and she's promised to keep it safe, even at the potential cost of his life. Subsequently, or consequently, actually, you know what? Both. Polly tells her that she's a silly B-word and pops off, only to fall into an animal trap like this hole in the ground. And she looks up just as a massive knife enters frame, no doubt in the hands of some dastardly dickball wholly intent on skinning her alive and wearing her face like a hat. End of episode 1. Episode 2. No problem, turns out it's not Leatherface, it is Kirsty, who also falls into the trap. So now they're both in there. And as though that weren't enough, Algernon for Finch turns up and falls into the trap as well. So now the 3 of them are in there. And the Chiquitas promptly disarm him, hold him at gun/dagger point, and steal his money and food. So this dude is massively boned now. He has lost his balance, he's lost his gun, he's lost his wallet, he's lost his lunch, and as a final kick in the nads, Apo Polylogis grabs his ID papers and a lock of his hair, basically threatening to out him as a soldier who's so shit that he got caught by 2 lassies, unless he helps them further down the road when we've, caught up with the rest of the plot. Bling blong blong, whatever, the chicks now ascend from the hall, they leave Al down there with a bruised ego, and they plop off. Boom. Cut to a prison cell, which, in a very MacGyver-esque manner, is filling with water, I think? I'm not sure. I think that's the case. Anyway, whatever. And in which Doc and Ben are tending to the lead. Still. We get some blah blah blahs about bloodletting, then Doc finds the Princess Standard on the lead, and he has a plan. Some more blah blah blahs later, and he's affecting his German accent again, and telling the English authorities, and eventually 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey, how he's uncovered a plot to kill the Duke of Cumberland, of tasty sausage fame. Goddamn, I am hungry. Shazam! Doc NLP's 50 Shades to lay down his guard, then throws the standard over him, gags him and locks him in a closet, and then kablamo, blah blah blah. Sorry, I am totally bullet pointing this. Perkins pops into the room, and Doc's just, chilling in there like nothing ever happened. And then he starts NLPing Perkins instead, which is hilarious, by the way. So, you know what? Let's give me a break, and let's soundbite this bit. Soundbite!
You suffer from headaches?
No, I don't. Oh!
Oh, dear. No headaches?
Well, what? Oh!
Oh, dear. You call me a liar?
No. Me head does ache.
Of course it does. What do you expect?
And so on and so forth. So he tells Perkins the only way to recuperate is to stay in the office in silence for at least an hour, and he abides. And by the time the other English plop into the office and release Perkins and 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey, the Doc is long gone and busy disguising himself as an old lady. Or well, an elderly woman. Not quite a lady. He's not a girl, not yet a woman. Okay, don't like my setting? Shut up. We cut back to Al, who's finally released from the animal pit, then cut immediately back to Lady Doctor, who spies Jamie, Bennington and Led, what's-his-face, being taken aboard the prisoner/slave ship, the Annabelle. And we end on a prisoner being thrown overboard to drown. And 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey's number 1, a shifty MFer named Trask, announcing that that's basically the only way to get off the Annabelle. Which, that sucks a big fat one, think Ben and Co., I'm assuming. End of episode 2, episode 3, in which Ben figures out they're to be sold off as slaves. Well done, Ben. Well done. With them in the ship's hold is a dude named Willie McKay, who's the ex-captain of the Annabelle, and basically Willie tells them that Trask stole the ship from him, so we know that legitimately accusations against Trask and 50 Shades of whatever wouldn't be wholly unfounded. Yada yada yada. Duchess, Apopolylogis, and Kirsty, for whom I can't think of a nickname at the moment, are in hiding in the outskirts of Inverness, where they suspect the prisoners are being held. There's a prison there somewhere. We get a scene of Polly standing around with a gun and pretending to be all badass, but then deciding she's actually a bit of a wuss and throwing the gun on the ground just as Kirsty pops into frame with oranges and disguises and whatever. Which, also, where did she get them? I understand that they stole money and could thus afford to pay for an alibi, but wouldn't they need disguises to get away with buying them? And if they didn't need disguises, then wouldn't they be buying their disguises from kinsfolk and therefore also not need money? Whatever. Polly, who throughout this entire serial is a total renegade badass. And I don't mean renegade as in she's out of control. I mean renegade as in the renegade. As in Lorenzo won't take shit from anyone, goddamn llamas, wearing a leather duster, kicking ass and taking names, whilst riding a Harley and trying to clear his name. Polly is super alpha in this one. I've lost my bearings somewhat here. Despite Steven Stigaling around the place is what I'm trying to say, she also proves that she is just a girl in the 1960s and thus incapable of being too alpha, in that she foolishly discards her gun. So what the hell is that about? Why would the writers need to write that into the serial? A moment ago she was holding a shiv against Al's nuts and stealing all but the shirt off his back, and now she's scared of a pistol that she's holding in her own, open brackets, perfectly capable, close brackets, hands. Makes no sense. Whatever. They're going to impersonate orange vendors, it turns out, to infiltrate the redcoat encampment in Inverness in order to free their pals. That's the plan. Except their pals are on a ship, so no dice, ladies. Cut to an inn, the Sea Eagle. This is in Inverness, where Al is playing cards, I think, or maybe that's later. Anyway, he's there, and the Chiquitas step in and approach him. Doc is there as well, still in drag, but unable to approach them without giving himself away, so he stays in the periphery. And now the Chiquitas and Al have a little chat, and Duchess goes, "We'll ruin your career if you don't do as we say," and blah blah blah. And now Al tells them all about 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey, Stone, Wall Jackson's plan to sell them off as slaves and whatnot. So now they know. Cut to 50 Shades of that guy, now presenting his prisoners with the option to sign a perfectly legal contract. Now, remember the pin? Keep remembering it. As I spoiled earlier, they can sign away their rights and attain quote-unquote freedom as manual laborers in the West Indies somewhere. Or they can not sign the papers and go to jail. They have this choice. Both pretty shitty alternatives, fair, but on paper that is perfectly sound. Pin. Never mind, one more thing about this scene, then I'm back to bullet pointing for a bit, because come on, we've all got things to do. For one, I need to watch the next serial. The one additional note I want to make is that Ben tears up all the contracts in front of 50 Shades of goddamn he has a long nickname and whatever. 50 Shades pops back out to have even more contracts drafted. Why am I saying this? To really hammer in the point. That's why, because 50 Shades may be a scoundrel, but he is a legit one. That's all. Now let's speed on. Boom. Back in the inn, Polly and Kirsty are playing cards with Perkins, the dude who was NLP'd to stay in 50 Shades' office earlier, when suddenly Doc appears with a gun and steals the girls away, threatening Perkins again as he does so. We learn later on that gun is actually unloaded. So I guess that means Doc is still a good guy. They pop into a barn or whatever. Doc tells them all about the Annabelle, blah, blah, blah. Polly devises a plan to use the money they stole from Al to buy weapons now from English soldiers and smuggle them onto the Annabelle to allow their friends to tango and cash out of there. But also, how much money do they have left? Didn't Kirsty just use that money to buy oranges and clothes? Or I don't know, how much cash was for Finch carrying on him, like when they robbed him? This is ridiculous. Whatever. Shazam, they now split up to get weapons, and shortly thereafter they come back. And this is pretty funny because the Chiquitas have brought back like a stale baguette and a dead cat. Well, no, but they brought back shit. When Bonnie goes shopping, she buys shit. The Doc, meanwhile, he comes back with like a wheelbarrow full of weapons. Like he has pistols and swords and like English plasma rifles, more or less. For some reason, he's done a fantastic job. And not just that, Doc also gets the bling ring off Kirsty's finger because he now has another plan as well. We'll get to that in a little bit. Cut to the Annabelle, where, prepare to gasp, ladies and gentlemen, Ben is bound and thrown overboard. End of episode 3. This is going super duper fast. Episode 4. Trask pulls the rope back aboard the ship, but there's no Benny boy at the other end of it, because, as he confirms later on, he very easily Houdini'd out of it. Ben now arrives ashore, coincidentally precisely where the Doc and Co. are prepping to set their plans in motion. Boom, it is bullet point time again. They all return to the ship. Doc, in order to meet with 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey, and the Chiquitas to deliver weapons to the prisoners, and Bennington to wait around and get ready to Steven Seagal the shit out of anyone who confronts him. That's pretty much the plan. So, anyway, Doc meets 50 Shades, shows him the ring, and says the prince is in fact downstairs in the hold, and for 10,000 guineas, which I'm assuming is a metric nut ton of kashish, he'll point him out to 50 Shades of shitting hell. This nickname is getting tedious now. They pop downstairs, and Doc points out Jamie. Then, kablamo, the prisoners riot, weapons in hand. Jamie and Benarooney collectively punch Trask in the ballsack, and McKay, that's Willie, takes back control of his ship. And he tells the prisoners, who now presumably are all free men, even though some of them must have been, like, robbers and murderers and rapists, and, like, we don't know. They can't all have been prisoners of war. Whatever. He tells them that they're now in his employ, and that they'll all set sail for France, where they have baguettes and nice cheeses and can and satire. Weirdly, I think Perkins tags along with them as well, because he's like, yeah, he does, because he's the only one there who actually speaks French, and they otherwise wouldn't be able to find the nearest brothel or whatever. Meanwhile, so close to the end now, Doc, Duchess, Bennington, and Jamie, who's popped along to help them find their way back to the TARDIS, I suppose, they have 50 Shades of soon-to-be-boned in their custody. We get a pretty epic, albeit quick, fight scene with redcoats. Grey escapes, and the group, victorious and erect and or wet respectively, decide they're going to pay Al another visit, which they do, and he obviously isn't pleased, but he's also forced to continue to cooperate. The following day, bing bong boom, all of them, Al included, are apprehended by Gray and a bunch of redcoats. But Al turns the table on him and has him arrested for being a conniving slaver. And Gray tries to disprove it by arguing that he had perfectly legal contracts signed by the prisoners. But he can't produce the evidence because Doc pickpocketed him, it turns out, and stole the goddamn contracts. And Doc and Benny both deny there ever having been any contracts in the first place. So 50 Shades of Solicitor Gray is now, he is now up Poop Creek sans paddle and is in fact subsequently escorted off to jail, where no doubt he is going to be chain raped to death by his fellow inmates, unless I suppose he signs a contract and gets himself sent to the West Indies. So, just to clarify this, I realize he's stealing/selling people from prisons and, not post-it notes from the office cupboard, but morally reprehensible though it may be, he's just this dude who's trying to make an extra buck on the side. And he's doing it in a totally legit contractual manner. I know that's not a nice thing to say, but it is true. He may be omitting certain aspects of the truth by telling them, the work's gonna be a cakewalk, but come on, have you ever signed a mobile phone contract, for instance, based on what a salesperson told you and found afterwards that what you're getting isn't what you were promised, but that you're now stuck because, you signed the contract? Exactly. Take that scenario and switch your sparkly iPhone for freedom and 24 months of subpar EE mobile reception for the final 6 months of your life served as a slave, and you've genuinely got the same thing. I'm not trying to defend 50 Shades of Solicitor Grey here. All I'm saying is Doc and Co. stole evidence and committed fraud and ultimately sent a technically innocent businessman to prison and or the gallows. Shocking. Anyway, we get a pleasant goodbye from Al. Polly gives him back his credentials and, in fact, gives him a little smooch, which is almost a little bit reminiscent of Babs and hunk number 1? Hunk number 1. Definitely hunk number 1. In, again, Daleks, C002 Daleks. Have a listen to that. And then our group, with Jamie in tow, enter the TARDIS, and they dematerialize. And you know what? I think this is quite a record quick review. Holy crap, 32 minutes in, end of the Highlanders. Review. Okie dokie, where shall I start? Let's start with the companions. Ben is pretty gung-ho in this one. But you know what? Polly steals the show. She is amazing in this one. Holy smokes, she's just coming up with plans left, right, and center. It feels like you can trust her. She's the kind of companion that you know what? She's basically Rose in this one. She's take charge, she's coming up with ideas, she doesn't mind getting her hands dirty. It's pretty cool to see, even though she hasn't actually been around for that long. As for the new companion, Jamie, you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing what he's gonna get up to, but we didn't really get to see that much of him, is what I'm trying to say. Not in this one, anyway. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but in my opinion, his presence in the Highlanders was basically just to set him up as a nice guy. Like a guy you can trust to do the right thing. So, you know, I'm curious. Fraser Hines, for God's sake, saw the guy on stage, very charming man, and record-breaking duration, longevity on the show as a companion, so clearly he did something good. I haven't seen a single serial of his outside of, the Highlanders. Whatever, I'm looking forward to seeing him. What I'm a little bit worried about, though, people who have seen the ensuing Classic Who episodes, or serials rather, like the next one and the one after that, they'll possibly think that I'm a little bit of a doofus for saying this, but I have no idea what happens to Ben and Polly. I know, from the War Machines, from what JD mentioned in our War Machines review, I know what actually happens to them, like when they go back and whatever, or when they return home, but I don't know when that is. Is that at the start of next one? Is that at the end of next one? I have no idea. I feel like they still got such an incredibly good piece of presence, action, agency, in this serial, that this is a good one to go out on. I wouldn't be heartbroken if they left at the start of the next one. Still, I need to get to know the new guy a little bit better first. Alright, whatever. Moving on to the Doc. The Doc is hilarious. There is something almost like Shakespearean about his comedy antics. The accent work, the cross-dressing. He's much more lively and active a chap than Hartnell was. And don't get me wrong, I loved Hartnell as the Doctor, and I always will. What I'm saying is, Troughton's not making me hate the show. Like that could ever happen. Anyway, his performance and his presence are refreshing. That's what I'm trying to say. The plots? Well, It's complicated enough. It makes sense pretty much throughout. It has a naive comedic bit of problem solving in the middle, the NLP session with Solicitor Grey and Perkins. Was that his name? Perkins? Whatever. Ultimately, the plot feels all right. I'm going to give this serial a 2.7. Yes, a 2.7. You heard me right. That is 0.2 better than The Smugglers, but it's not as good as The Massacre, obviously. And it's certainly not as good as some sci-fi stories, but that's a personal preference. Like, let's say The Power of the Daleks. I think I gave that like 3.6 or 3.7 maybe, but so it's certainly not as good as The Power of Daleks, but still not a bad one. And I wouldn't be surprised if, were they to ever recover this serial, and I saw it's, not in full Technicolor, I was about to say that, but if I were to actually be able to watch this serial, maybe I'd give it an even higher rating. But for a serial that I could actually speed through in half an hour, which doesn't feel very Who Back When-y, normally we would take like an hour. Normally, you know what? I would sit here for an hour and a half and just spit into the microphone, and then I'd have to cut that down to like an hour that some of you would probably hate listening to. This time, I had no trouble speeding through it in half an hour. For exhibiting that level of plot, I'm giving it 2.7. Yeah. Listener. Bing bong, Future Pumpkin here. Hello guys, how you doing? Hope you're enjoying the show so far. Check it out. When I was recording this solo mission, I had not yet received any mini reviews, so when we jump back into Past Pumpkin Soliloquy, why am I speaking about myself in the third person? It's so douchey. Anyway, whatever. You're gonna hear me say, well, we didn't receive any mini reviews. Well, you know what? At the time, I was telling you the truth. I was not lying. But thing is, after I'd stopped recording and announced that on Twitter, we heard from one of our super fantastic mega fans, SGamer82, that is 82, the number, Steve Meister, who promptly sent in a mini review. So obviously I had to sit back down again and record it. Stephen, thank you so much. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. This is what Stephen has to say. A historical set in 18th century Scotland, The Highlanders, is, I think, the only story of Troughton's time on Doctor Who with no science fiction elements at all. To be honest, I don't have a great deal to say about the episode itself. It follows a trend seen in other historicals, where the troupe lands in history, gets caught up in the affairs of the locals, and work to survive long enough to make their way back to the TARDIS. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that, but isn't that... Actually, you know what? I think that's what every episode of Doctor Who is like. Even if it happens to take place in the future, that's pretty much what happens. But no less true a point, Steve Meister. Okay, he goes on. The characters are another matter, with a love of hats rivaling Matt Smith's love of bow ties. Yes, good point. The Doctor, in his guise of Dr. Von Wehr, works to free Ben and the Scots from the Solicitor's plot. This is a serial that loses a lot in audiobook form as we miss out on the Doctor's disguises throughout as he sneaks around the British camp, ultimately crafting the plan to help the Scots help themselves and get away to safety. He probably did make a good granny. And I at least didn't get to see it due to using the audiobook to experience the story. Good point. Sorry, I didn't really make any observations on that. Ladies and gentlemen, and Steve Meister, if you don't want to slog through the recon, I'm pretty sure you can find screenshots of that particular disguise on Google. So just, yeah, I think if you search for Doctor Who Highlanders drag, you're probably going to find it. And I absolutely promise, I will pop some screenshots of that, along with a bunch of other screenshots, whatever I can grab from the recon, on this episode's page on whobackwhen.com. So check that out. Anyway, yeah, he does look pretty good. He basically looks like a babushka doll. Yeah, as in, he pretty much just wears a scarf around his head. Anyway, here we go. Ben and Polly were in good form this episode. I imagine it was quite the culture shock for them to discover that in this time and place their countrymen were the bad guys. Polly in particular shone in this episode. In contrast to Kirsty, she generally kept her head and kept trying to find a way to help the Doctor and Ben. Ben's Houdini escape was a great way to pull off that particular cliffhanger, since it allowed Ben to essentially save himself rather than have some Deus Ex Machina do the job. It brought to mind one of the cliffhangers in the Aztecs, where Ian had to save himself from a flooding room. Oh, nice ref, dude. Nice ref. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you need to check out the Aztecs as well. It's not a lost episode. You can totally enjoy the shit out of it and then definitely listen to our review of it. And yeah, I didn't really make that connection in my head, but yeah, it is pretty similar. Stephen goes on. The Highlanders introduces us to a new companion and SGamer82 addresses me personally in this one. Ponken, I hope you like him because he's here for the long haul. Well, goddamn right, I certainly hope so as well. Fraser Hines' Jamie McCrimmon is one of the Doctor's longest-running companions, staying for the entirety of Troughton's run, and even appearing with Troughton and Colin Baker's The Two Doctors. I like him quite a bit personally, partly because he's something we actually get very rarely in Doctor Who, a companion from Earth's past. The majority of companions are from the current present day, and a decent number are from other worlds. You can count on one hand the number of companions from the past, including Jamie. I can only think of Katerina and a later companion of Troughton's off the top of my head. Fortunately, Jamie is more adaptable than Katerina was at dealing with aliens and spaceships. My rating for the Highlanders, S-Gamer concludes, is a 2.8. Excellent rating, dude. A bit lower than my usual ratings, despite the fact that I enjoyed the troop in action, and I'm happy to get a past-era companion in Jamie. On the other hand, the story itself wasn't all that memorable for me, and moments I like from Jamie are all from later serials. Here it didn't feel like he actually did all that much, since much of the focus was on Colin. God damn it, dude, you're like echoing my brainwaves. I'm pretty sure I made some of these points. Yes, I agree with you on the companions, on Duchess in particular being totally fantastic in this one. And yes, pretty sure I said this as well. Absolutely agree with you. We don't really get an impression of Jamie in the serial. I am super duper looking forward to seeing him in future serials. And you know what? Dude Meister, because you said that you kind of like him, I'm pretty sure I will as well. Thank you so much for your mini review. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't hear me say this earlier, holy smokes, people, you gotta follow Stephen on Twitter. He is at sgamer82. That is 82, the number. Stephen, thank you so much. Stephen. Yeah, we're not gonna go back to my past selves conclusion of this this podcast episode, in which, if I'm not mistaken, I also have a little shout out for the very same sgamer82. So yeah, you should enjoy that. And you know what? In case you feel like now you've already got the full benefit of this episode, you don't need to finish it. There is more trivia coming for the Highlanders, or sort of. And there are some spoilers for upcoming New Who reviews. So you absolutely need to listen to the rest of the show. Okay, let's time travel back to the past. Ciao. We didn't have a listener mini for this one. No probs there. Not entirely surprising as it's a lost ep. Oh, and by the way, on that note, thank you to everyone who's been, who keeps telling us that they use our classic reviews for reference in terms of which eps to watch, and my solo mission's entirely in place, and some people have said, of watching the lost eps. Glad you're enjoying the show. Thank you for letting us know. Still, I would entreat you, even if you don't want to slog through the lost ones, and I don't blame you for that. Not at all. But if you're prepared to watch some of the classic Who serials, then you know what, just go ahead and watch all of the, the intact ones, because you are sure to get plenty of enjoyment out of them. I have no doubt. Anyway, regardless, thanks guys. Oh, I will say one thing though, on the listener minis note, I will embed a tweet on this episode's post on whobackwhen.com, namely a tweet that was sent to us from sgamer82. Stephen, with an awesome photo of Fraser Hines, aka Jamie McCrimmon, in the TARDIS alongside the 12th Doctor. Thank you for sending us that one. Steve Meister at sgamer82 on Twitter. Oh, by the way, holy crap, a piece of trivia. I'm going to conclude on a piece of trivia that I completely forgot to mention. This was just blatantly, abhorrently omitted from the trivia intro to this episode. McCrimmon, James McCrimmon, we encountered that name recently, and I had to be reminded by JD in the episode, what's it called? Tooth and Claw, the not quite werewolf episode with David Tennant. He claims to be Dr. James McCrimmon, clearly a reference to Jamie McCrimmon. Now we've met the guy on Who Back When. Fantastic. Awesome piece of trivia. Thank you again, past JD. And also have a listen to our Tooth and Claw episode. I listened to that one myself a couple of days ago. Very nice. Nostalgic experience there. Anyway, that is it for this time. If you want to get in touch with me, no problemo. Hit me up on Twitter. I am Ponken on Twitter. That is at Ponken. Here is a soundbite of JD singing how you spell that.
Ponken, Ponken.
Thanks, JD. Next time. So, in terms of Classic Who, we're reviewing The Underwater Menace. 3 out of 4 episodes are missing, so that'll probably be a lost one. We'll see. But check it out. In terms of New Who, holy smokes, you guys. Okay, here's the thing. We have already recorded our Satan Pit review. So, the next one that we're reviewing, as in the next one that we're recording that you can send in your mini reviews for, is Love and Monsters. Oh, for the love of all that is good and pure in the universe, send us your mini reviews. Love and Monsters, I think almost universally hailed as one of the worst Doctor Who episodes ever. It is such a gargantuan piece of shit. God, I'm looking forward to reviewing that one. I'm going to be sitting down with, at the very least, Nicolele and the Druid. We're going to have ourselves a fantastic time crapping all over that miserable episode. Here's what I want from you guys. Send us mini reviews, and in those mini reviews, embed your thoughts on how to improve that episode. What should have been taken out of it? What should have been added to it? What should have been done completely differently in order to make it a solid, watchable episode? A respectable piece of Who, as opposed to a piece of garbage. You know what? Do you disagree with that statement? Is it not a piece of garbage in your mind? Oh my god, you have to send us a mini review. You have to tell us why you're giving it a higher mark than, no doubt, all three of us, at the very least. Who knows who else might be joining us? Oh my god! I want to hear from all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, oh god, I am so excited to review that one. I've got to calm down. I feel like I need a drink after thinking about all that. Anyway, that's New Who. In terms of Audio Who, still funny. Yeah, you guessed it, We're and Dawn is still the next one in line. We'll get to that when we get to that. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been a treat. Thank you so much for listening to me babble on, talking into your earballs for, like, who knows how long. Be rad and excellent to each other. Shamalama ding dong, rock on. Catch you in our next review. Ciao. Kablamo! Did you enjoy the show? Then please do what the cosmos compels you to and spread the gospel of Who Back When. Tell your friends. Don't have any friends? No problemo. Tell some strangers. Like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Who Back When. All in one word. Are you on Google Plus? Then find us on Google Plus. That's plus Who Back When. And when you do, tell us why you're on Google Plus. Who Back When just got its very own Twitter account. No lie. So give us a follow. You guessed it. That's @WhoBackWhen. All in one word. Check us out on SoundCloud, vote us up on Reddit, listen to us on Stitcher, and head on over to our website, whobackwhen.com, where you can leave a comment, submit a review of your own, and peruse our visual index of aliens, monsters, and more, which increases in kablamos with every episode. And lastly, give us a rating and review on iTunes. Not only would it make us super chuffed, and it really, really would, but as thanks, we will transmigrate your iTunes nom de plume into the credit list of trailers for fake Doctor Who audiobooks produced by Who Back When. Have a poke around our bonus episodes to make no sense of that. That's it. Rock on and be rad and excellent to each other. Catch your earballs in our next Classic Who review, New Who review, or, still funny, Audio Who review. Ciao.
Who Back When?